Hey all, this is my second attempt at recording this video because apparently my first attempt was... I have a lisp and it was very obvious. Like, there were words that I knew what I was trying to say, but then when I rewatched it, it was not what I wanted to say. So we're going to try this again. I am reading the book series A Song of Ice and Fire. That is by George R.R. Martin. Now, the first book in that series is A Game of Thrones. So, I'm going to take you through my experience reading it and my thoughts. Kind of how I did with the Mission Earth Thought series when it first started, where I summarized it and then gave my thoughts. So that's kind of the way I'm going to do this, but be aware, I haven't watched the Game of Thrones TV show or any of its subsequent, I haven't watched its series. That's what I mean to say. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it at all. So I have no idea what this book series is about. I don't know the characters, and I don't know the pronunciation of half of these names. But in the prologue of this book, we are introduced to 3 characters and a mystery. The characters, I'm probably going to pronounce at least one of these wrong. Garrett, Sir Waymar Royce, and Will. All 3 men are members of the Night's Watch. And it seems like they were tracking a pack of raiders, and when they found them, they were all dead. At least that's according to Will. Will is sure they're dead because their fire is burnt out and every single one of them is still. He even got close to one of them and they didn't move. So they all decide to go to investigate this pack of raiders, much to Garrett's chagrin, because he literally says, "Dead men tell no tales. There's nothing we could learn from these people." But Royce overrides that because he's the highest in rank, and they all go. Will leads the way. He stops a little bit before they get there and says it's better to proceed on foot. But something does feel off. Garrett is going to stay with the horses, and Royce and Will are going to go ahead. But there's something really off at this point. Like, there's a wolf howling in the background. It's really, really cold. Like, the way they're describing it makes me think about, like, the dead of January and February in Minnesota, where it's, like, -30 half the time. And that's with the wind chill, I should say. Like, the regular air can be probably about 0, and then the wind chill brings it all the way down to -30. Hi, I know I was left out in the cold at that point. Hi, I know I've been left out in the cold a couple times. The problem when they get to the site is the dead men are no longer there. Royce ends up mocking Will, and Will feels there is something very wrong, because he was sure they were dead. He saw them. He was almost certain they were dead. So Royce orders Will to climb a nearby tree and look for a fire. Will obeys, but his gut is still telling him there's something seriously wrong, because these dead men couldn't have just gotten up and left, because they left their axe. A very valuable weapon, according to Will. They left it. Why would they leave something like that? When Will is up in the tree, Royce is starting to get a little paranoid. He's very on edge. And Will sees a flash of light go by in his sight. He thinks it's probably a bird, so he doesn't bother to announce it. But the night is only growing colder, and the mystery of the dead men is looming pretty heavily in the air at this point. So Will is watching these events, and he sees out of the woods there emerges a tall, shadowy figure. Its description in the book is a tall, gaunt figure with white flesh, pale white flesh. And its armor seems to change colors, shifting from snow white to shadowy black to almost the same color as the forest around them. It's kind of a very chameleon-like aesthetic for me. The wind seems to stop. No more wind. As the figure walks forward, it's holding a long sword that the way the book describes it basically says not a metal that a man would be using. Kind of the description. I'm not saying it is made out of this, but I'm saying the description makes it sound like it's like crystal and moonlight. Like it's very mystical. It's almost invisible if you look at it edge on, because it is sharper than razor sharp. Now I'm just going to stop here in the prologue to get my thoughts. This is like halfway through and where I was writing my thoughts down. This is wild. Like, I am enjoying this book so thoroughly. I never thought I would. I don't dare speculate on anything quite yet, and I probably won't even speculate until like the end of this book as to what's going on in this series. It is a thrill, and I want it to stay a thrill. I want it to stay a mystery to me to the very end. I appreciate the lack of swear words in this book, because I have had to put a few books down because of how much they swear. Like, I got a blind date with a book box about 2 months ago, and the book I got out of it within like the first 3 pages had like 10 swear words, and I was like, I can't read this. It's too much. But anyway, that's not the point. I enjoy this George R.R. Martin's writing style. It's very engaging. It's mysterious. Every word is placed there with intent. It's making you feel the way he wants you to feel. Like, he has certainly earned his spot in my head with the greats like J.R.R. Tolkien and Robert Jordan. Wow. Those are hard names to get out. No reason whatsoever. Now, I'll fully admit, like I said in the beginning of this video, I have never watched the television show. So I don't know what this is about. And I'm going into this blind, and I'm enjoying every moment of it. I have spent so long reading series like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson that were way below what my reading level is. So I'm realizing that, wow, I can understand this and follow it. One of the biggest complaints I had with Heroes of Olympus was I couldn't follow the plot from chapter to chapter because of the changing perspective. But with this book, I'm in chapter 3, by the way. We're only going to get to chapter 1 in this video. We're going to get through chapter 1. We'll stop at that point. I'm enjoying this. Even with the changing perspective, it's easy to understand. Like, I have avoided series like this for so long because I was afraid I wouldn't understand them. And I know you're probably saying, now Aurora, you are getting way ahead of yourself. You're in the prologue. You know, don't get too excited until you read the whole thing. Or maybe even get halfway through it, then you can get excited. Well, let me live to regret if this lets me down, but right now I highly doubt it's going to. Because I love every minute of this. Anyway, back to where we were in the prologue. Royce ends up fighting this shadowy figure, and more shadows show up to watch this fight. When Royce inevitably loses the fight, the figure and the Watchers all gather around him, and they butcher him. Encouraging start. Will finally comes down from the tree. thinking that it's safe because now these shadows are gone. And he picks up the shattered remains of Royce's sword. Sorry. And he's gonna bring it back to Garrett because he wants to, make sure he has a report as to why Royce is not back. But when he kneels down, he goes to stand back up, Royce's body is standing over him. And the bloody gloved hand reaches out, wraps around Will's throat, and that is where the prologue ends. A rather bleak scene disguising the mystery of the whole series. Chapter 1 is titled Bran, and it starts with a beheading. A rather gruesome description of one, too. Like I said, encouraging start. Bran is 7 years old, and he's witnessing this. We also get introduced to Jon Snow. And the description of the man sentenced to death, by the way, indicates it was probably Jared. Or Garrett, not Jared. I don't know why I said like that. It seems also, I missed a detail in the prologue. Because those shadowy figures are called Others, with a capital O. And I probably saw the word Others in the prologue and didn't register that it was a capital O. So that's my bad. Now this book it moves quick and it moves violently. And I was not expecting a beheading in the first chapter. It sets a very serious and a very bleak tone for the series, and I can't wait to get paid so I can actually watch the TV show. The one fear I have is that I'm gonna move faster in the TV show than what I do in reading, and I don't want to spoil myself. Anyways, after this beheading, Jon has a talk with Bran about bravery and courage. And then he rides off with another one of his and Bran's brothers named Robb. After a brief talk between Bran and his father, Jon beckons them over to see what he and Robb had found. It was a dead direwolf. Something that hadn't been seen south of the Wall in 200 years. There's a debate that follows on killing the 5 wolf pups that they found with the dead direwolf. But Jon makes a great point to his father that there are 5 pure Stark kids and 5 direwolves. 3 sons, 3 daughters for the Stark kids, 3 males, 3 females for the wolves. Now, this is a detail where Jon omits himself from the count because he is a illegitimate child. They use the B word. Oh, why am I saying it like that? They use bastard. They call him a bastard child. Which really hurts my feelings. Like, I get that that's technically the proper term, but also just how Jon takes being, a bastard child is so sad. Like, he omits himself from the count of the children that his father had because he's not a legitimate child. But you do see that the father does care about Jon the same as any of the other kids. When he asks Jon, "Are you sure you don't want a pup?" And Jon goes, "I am not a Stark. I'm not part of this family." It just breaks my heart. It makes me sad. And the reason Jon made the point about the direwolves and the kids is because the banner for the Stark family is a direwolf. So they all begin to ride home with the direwolf pups tucked safely so they don't freeze. And they come across another pup on their way. A Snow White albino one that goes to John. So there are scenes in this book that are like, oh wow, that was shocking. And then there's really nice, kind of heartfelt scenes afterwards. I am immediately loving this book. It grabbed my attention and it did not let go. I love the writing, I love the characters, I love the atmosphere and the settings. The atmosphere is so dark and mysterious, and it brings up the sense of dread at every corner. Every single word gives you the sense of dread. Even in those really soft scenes, where we start getting empathy for characters like Jon Snow, there's still an overarching sense of dread. And I'm loving it. I love the characters so far. And you can read any of their dialogues and immediately feel attached to them. Or you can hate their guts. Granted, at this point, through chapter 1, we have not really met any of them that we really hate. However, by the time we reach chapter 3, I'm sure we are going to meet a few more. A few that we do hate. I really wish I had given this series a chance sooner, because I love it. And I understand why other people love it and why people might have loved the TV show. I just feel bad for never giving that TV show a chance either. Because this is so good. I drew the comparison between George R. R. Martin and J.R.R. Tolkien because it makes me think of... I have watched the Lord of the Rings movies. It makes me think of the overarching feel and the story. It makes me think of that a lot. That was kind of where my mind went first. So I really can't wait to see how this book turns out, and I can't wait to see how the rest of the series turns out. And definitely let me know if you want to see me review the TV show, because I definitely will. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that because I don't edit these videos clearly. So, yeah. See ya.